and welcome to the new episode of Fullfunnel Live. We are back after the summer break, after the summer pause. Today is episode 114, which I'm going to host with staff at InPond. As usually, if I don't have guests, we run these episodes together. So happy to kick off new season and chat with you guys about a real problem that is happening in a lot of B2B companies, which is called MQLs, Marketing Qualified Leads. And I would love to talk about probably unpopular opinion, which is all about unditching MQLs. You probably guys have heard from every corner on LinkedIn. People talk that MQLs are useless. You need to teach MQLs, etc. But I have never seen anybody talking about the root reason why MQL model doesn't work, right? And the root reason is the broken lead generation playbook that exists in many B2B companies. So that's our agenda. We'll talk today about the right MQL model, share with you some examples, and as always, you are very welcome to ask any questions. As you know, earlier we used to run these live episodes on Zoom platform. Today, we wanted to try Goldcast, which we used to broadcast our Fullfunnel Summit. So let's see how it's going. And first question to you guys, where you all join us from. Let us know, please. I'm curious after the pause where you guys are all coming from. And I used to say I'm broadcasting from Split, Croatia, but this time I'm broadcasting from Spain. So our office is slowly moving to that part. So curious to see where you guys all coming from. Staff, where you are sitting?
I'm in Ghent, but I was talking to our friend Carl yesterday, and then he's trying to convince me to move to Valencia as well. But I calculated the commute from Valencia to my gym here in Ghent, and I don't think I'll be able to come to the gym twice per day if I if I live in Valencia.
Big commitment. Manfred,
Yeah,
Germany. Good to see you.
Hey, Torsten.
Hey, Torsten. Oslo. So, Torsten, you actually
Ghent.
came back from Split. Alp, Ghent, your neighbor. Alan, Lisbon. Cool. Good to see you. So, no people from the United States. Usually we had a good split between the audience, between Europeans and North Americans. But okay, cool. So, that being said, let me quickly come back to the agenda. And basically, we have 3 points that we want to discuss today. It's all about what's broken in the current MQL playbook. The way how we look at MQLs at Fullfunnel, right? And how we define MQLs. And we have better definition, to be honest. And last part would be all about how to proceed with MQLs, right? That's probably the most actionable part that everybody is looking for. So that being said, let's kick it off and let's start. Probably let's start with the broken playbook. As I mentioned, nobody is literally talking about the root reason, right? What happens in B2B organizations. And actually, this is the broken playbook that we see in companies, right? A lot of companies assume that there is a shortcut or there is a specific tactic that can easily convert any buyer into, any prospect, any account into buyer, right? So they create what I call utopia funnels, right? Or fantasy funnels, whatever you prefer, which is all about, running ads. Then people download something or sign up for webinar or whatever. Then they receive a bunch of emails. They see retargeting ads. And then sales call and try to book the call. And companies assume that this is a scalable way, right? So they can put more money in it. Almost everything is automated. And I mean, that's it, right? So the buyers, just because they decided to market to a broader target addressable market, these buyers will buy, right? We all know that it doesn't work. And actually, I just took a screenshot from a recent audit that we performed for one B2B company with high ACV, right, as you can see. And now, here is the reality, right? Marketing reports that they have generated 35,000 MQLs while they were able to win 69 deals. And this is a yearly report, right? So the closed won conversion is below 0.2%. And then the question is, if we take a sober look at numbers, right? Then we need to ask ourselves, does it really work? And whenever I ask this question, everybody nods, their head said, yeah, indeed, it doesn't work, but they still continue running it. Yeah. And there are multiple reasons why it's happening. I think it's also important to cover why this is happening and why companies continue running the same playbook despite the fact that it doesn't work. There are several reasons. Reason number one, unrealistic or wrong expectations from board members or investors. This is the most common. So a lot of companies don't have mature marketing function, and quite often they are sales-led, right? Then they hire VP of marketing, CMO, start building marketing team. They don't have real marketing processes, but they expect that people come and the magic happens and boom, the pipeline would immediately, drastically increase and the revenue would drastically increase. And we all know that especially in B2B, for companies with long sales cycle, it takes time until they would see the results from the marketing activities, right? And most marketing activities, they don't directly attribute to revenue. Hence, the first thing, right, is wrong expectations. They should be set up from the beginning. And of course, it's just, I would say it's a joint mistake. It's a joint failure if, let's say, a marketer joins the company and doesn't discuss this. Obviously, these things should be discussed beforehand, right? So the second one is the simply organizational culture, right? Simply just the mindset, which is based on volume, on numbers, right? Playing the game of numbers. Okay, so we just need to send more emails. We just need to run ads more frequently, right? We just need to target more people. Or as I remember in early days of my career, like one CEO described it, we just need to aware more people that our product exists, which is funny, right? So that's the second problem. Now, why I'm touching these points? Because if marketing team or let's say a new marketer or VP of marketing, whoever, didn't discuss the role of marketing in the early beginning and didn't get the alignment with the marketing function, right, with the executives about the role of marketing and the marketing function, now they would be dealing with this problem because they would be getting pressure from the board members and of course from sales. And unfortunately, if you are working for a company and I mean, I'm touching completely non-marketing part, but more, let's say, human psychology, right? If you have family, if you have mortgage and a lot of stuff, obviously you want to keep the job, right? And then just to justify your existence, you start doing stupid things that don't work. And I mean, I would call it literally straightforward, right? Just doing this, running these playbooks that don't yield any revenue results. So
I also think there's not as much good high quality information for B2B as there is to B2C. If you study marketing in school, for example, you will learn only normal B2C stuff. The first time you Google something in marketing, you're getting bombarded with ads from ClickFunnels, and all the most of the big marketing gurus, they are really focused on B2C, and so what people are learning are the things that work in B2C. It's actually very funny. When I started my gym, my jiu-jitsu gym, all of a sudden I had to do all those B2C type things. And if I run an ad and I spend 200 euros, I have 20 people in my gym and maybe half of them sign up. So I do the math, 200 euros turns into a lot more money automatically, right? And then, but then you're looking for a job and you get hired in a B2B company, and you just think like, I'm going to do the same thing that I learned to my B2C experience or what I learned at school, and I'm going to try to apply that to B2B now. And it doesn't work, right? Because I mean, you're just having some people that like to read and they download your ebook, and now they're a, quote unquote a lead, and it doesn't work. And then you start try to figure out why. First reason is sales is not following up with them, supposedly, right? Second is, the targeting is not good enough, etc., etc., etc. And you never get to the point that you touched earlier, is that there's a really lack of a cohesion or lack of a link between the way that you're marketing with the way that people are buying. But because you already have this experience that it works in another field, it's so easy to think it's going to work again now in high ticket B2B. And I think it's quite understandable that people make these mistakes, and it's the same as in investing, right? You will never get fired for investing in IBM or Microsoft or one of the blue chip companies. The same, you're never going to get fired for getting more MQLs with your ads, right? So it's a safe option. Everybody you're talking to, because I remember this in some of my previous experience, is people would just sit me down and they're like, Staffo, we need some ads running. I want some leads. I want to have this many. If I give you this budget, how many leads are we gonna get, right? And you're having this meeting every single day with some other guy that wants to come tell you how to do your job. I have quite a lot of sympathy for people in this position.
But again, this is, you just emphasized
Yeah.
on the problem that is happening in the organizations that I have mentioned, right? Assuming that there are some tactics that can easily convert, especially in B2B, right? Easily convert buyers. But if you sell, let's say, 7-figure software and your sales cycle length is like 6, 9, 12 months, right? There are no shortcuts. And the number one thing that these companies need to realize and accept is that the leads are not the results of, leads is not the consequence or outcome of good ads or good search engine optimization or cold email. Leads are the outcomes of great product, right brand awareness programs, demand generation programs, demand capture and activation, which stands for joint marketing and sales playbooks, client success and expansion, right? Then you generate real leads, companies that are interested in your product. Now we are touching MQLs. Let's come back to MQLs, and it was a solid point about bringing B2C experience to B2B. I recently posted about this. It's just a huge mistake. Obviously, there are a lot of things, a lot of positive things that we can bring from B2C, and one of them is frictionless experience. But the, let's say, B2C approach to B2B marketing simply doesn't work. Now, coming back to the point of MQLs, right? If you continue running the playbook and your core KPI is MQL, right? And you say, okay, our team generated 35,000 MQLs. You actually, a lot of marketers try to protect themselves that way, saying, hey, look, we did a fantastic job. But for any board member, for any executive, for any investor, this metric makes no sense because they always look bottom of the funnel. And if they see that your conversion from MQL to sales opportunity to one sales opportunity is below 0.2%, it just immediately firebacks. It just immediately creates the opinion that marketing doesn't work and marketing does, like, okay, I will be polite. So marketing does a bad job. So coming back to my point, are MQLs dead? Should we ditch MQLs?
But
No,
wait,
because
Andre,
yeah,
I think it's also worthwhile before we go there to think about what is an MQL, because that's one of the things I've been finding out now doing this audits is that nobody has the same idea about what an MQL is, right? So people don't agree on what is marketing qualified, and they also don't agree on what is a lead. So how would you define an MQL in, let's say, the best possible description of it? Like
and
not
that
like the
was
shitty version.
exactly the next point I wanted to describe. And actually, I would share my screen back to demonstrate this simple diagram that we have created, right? So what are MQLs, or who are MQLs, right? So first of all, these are the accounts that fit your ideal customer profile, right? And they don't fit your broad definition. Let's say we sell to all banks in the North America, right? In the US. No, you qualify accounts through account qualification criteria, through tier segmentation, through firmographics, etc. Right? Next, MQLs are accounts that are not ready to buy. They are researching. They are interested in a specific piece of content. Hence, you should never transfer these, let's say, leads, if you want to call them that way, right, to sales. Why we still call them, if you want to call them marketing qualified lead, right, we can still stick to this definition, but we prefer to call marketing qualified leads the engaged accounts. And here is the difference, right? Why we call them engaged accounts? Because these companies demonstrated some level of engagement, right? They could attend a series of your events. They could download specific content. They could browse your website and spend a decent time on your website. They can engage with your, I don't know, like with your demand gen assets like ads, organic content, thought leadership content, newsletters, whatever you guys are doing, right? So there is a specific engagement, and definitely what does it mean, and why I still suggest to track this metric, but you shouldn't present this metric in your revenue report just not to break the numbers, right? You can keep it in your marketing report. And I would explain in a moment why. So first of all, MQL or engaged accounts, and I just explained why, right? It's better to call this, contacts and accounts, the engaged accounts. First of all, it's a good indicator how well your demand generation and awareness programs work, right? So is it bad to track the accounts that fit your ICP, that engage with your content? Is it bad or no?
No, it's great, of course.
Of course, it makes perfect sense, right? Because a lot of companies focus on wrong metrics. So a lot of companies prioritize volume. We want to generate 10,000 views, right? But if you'll ask me, I would say I would prefer 100 target accounts to consume my content, tier 1 accounts, tier 1, tier 2 to consume my content, instead of getting generic 10,000, views of my, let's say, blog post or LinkedIn post, whatever. The same with this podcast episode, right? I would prefer, let's say, 50 CMOs, VP of marketing who work for our ICP, right, accounts, instead of getting 1,000 people who really don't care about us, right? So that's the point, shifting from volume to quality. That's the first one, and that's why it makes perfect sense. And next one is, it's a perfect indicator to develop a cohesive demand generation and account-based marketing model, because when you identify these engaged accounts, right, and if they fit your tier 1 and tier 2 account definition, they are the best candidates to be moved to ABM program, right? This is how basically demand generation sources accounts to ABM. And this is essential, right? Never ever add these accounts to automated pitch cadences, like these 5 emails that are literally begging to book a demo call and then send them to sales and tell to call and try to book a demo. it doesn't work, and because there is no buying intent. And just bear to me, it's not that hard. Even if you have super sophisticated and super complicated booking process, it's still not that hard to fill in the form if I'm interested in demo, right? So if I were interested, I would simply book it. If I didn't do this, then there are specific reasons, right, why I didn't do it. And that's why we prefer to call it that way. And in a moment, we'll discuss how we should work with the engaged accounts or MQLs. But let me know, guys, if it makes sense to you. I'm just curious to hear your feedback. Does it make sense to you? Do you agree with that definition? Says I'm responsible for report of the MQL plus SQL plus deals created to stakeholders. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Just share with us if it makes sense, type plus in the chat, or if it doesn't make sense, type minus. Curious to hear your feedback.
Like what I've also noticed is I mean, just to emphasize, we're talking now about accounts. When we're doing some of the audits, people would take just separate contacts as leads without linking them to an account. And then you have 30,000 leads, but most of them, I mean, they're just separate. There's separate contacts, so it gives you really no good prediction for how many deals you can get out of it or how many SQLs you can get out of it. And the other thing is we're talking about engaged accounts, right? They have shown somehow that they want to interact with us or with our content one way or another. But many companies, what they do is what they call an MQL is anybody that entered our database in any way that fits our very loose market criteria, which is oftentimes industry and headcount and nothing else. And then they're saying, oh, this is a marketing qualified lead. Or maybe they're marketing qualified, but as long as there's no real engagement or anything, I would never call them a lead. I think that maybe you should call them a marketing qualified contact or a marketing qualified account. But I think many people don't make that differentiation. And then when you start to reach out to them, that's when you see those percentages that you were showing earlier with like 0.0 something conversion rates. And that's like one in, yeah.
You're absolutely correct. I just wanted to say that we need to zoom out from the contact level and start looking at accounts, because in B2B, yes, indeed, still we talk to individuals, right? But we sell to companies. And if we generated a contact, right? For us, it's also a good indicator, which is called account penetration, right? Account penetration means with how many people from target account we got connected, right? Or how many people from our target account are aware of our product, right? So that could be a good metric as well to measure, but it should be separate from the core revenue report. If you run account-based marketing program, if you have good ABM dashboards, you can track this one. But again, the key point is that it shouldn't appear in the revenue report. And now the key question, if like the playbook that we were discussing, right, the broken playbook doesn't work, what should we do with MQLs? Because again, it's easy to say ditch MQLs, but if we just agreed that these accounts, sorry?
Problem solved.
yeah, problem solved. Ditch MQLs and that's it, right? But the point is, why should we ditch MQLs if we can build relationship, especially if we got engaged accounts that belong to tier 1 and tier 2, right? Companies with the high revenue potential. Why should we ditch them instead of trying to build a relationship with these people, instead of understanding where these accounts are in their buying process, what are their current needs, and how can we help? The number one thing here is how can we help? This is really important, not how can we sell. Because unfortunately, if they are in the early beginning of their buying journey, in their buying process, right, maybe they still don't aware that they have a problem that your product solves. And this is a lot of companies that sell complex products can relate to this challenge, right? So there is a lot of education. Maybe your peers, they just realized or something attracted their attention, right? And maybe they are realizing that some things, I mean, their jobs to be done could be done better, right? But they are interested in learning more, not buying a specific solution, because they are still in the early beginning. And that's the main difference, right? Hence, I would share with you a few examples of, again, how we define the engaged accounts, just one example, and how we can proceed, right, with prospecting and marketing and engaging with these accounts. And I know Staff also prepared a great example that we'll share with you guys. So give me a second, I would share my screen again. And here we go. So let's come back to this model, right, that I was sharing. What should we do with engaged accounts, right? So first of all, progressive profiling, which stands for understanding where these companies in their buying process. Next one is tier segmentation plus lead scoring. And lead scoring, and this is really funny because, again, it leads to the broken playbook. Whenever we discuss lead scoring with any company that says we have lead scoring, immediately marketers mention the, let's say, Marketo, HubSpot, and the scoring based on clicking the links open in the specific emails. But this is the worst way of scoring the accounts, right? When it comes to account scoring, we track completely different things. And maybe we'll record another episode about account scoring. But just to give you an idea, scores come from the level of engagement, the tier these companies belong, the intent data that we were able to collect, the insights from the account research, which tell us how likely this account could convert and when this account could convert, right? And based on this action, based on this, let's say, based on these insights, we assign specific scores, and we do it purely for one reason: to prioritize accounts. Because if we run demand generation programs, right, will generate a lot of engaged accounts, but we need to prioritize the engagement with them, right? That's why we do it. And next one, account penetration. We have already touched this, with how many people from a specific account we were able to engage and connect, basically how many people are aware of us. And warm-up plays, right? Warm-up stands, again, we had a lot of podcast episodes about different ABM warm-up tactics. It's basically how can we create the awareness inside target account and prepare them for the activation part. Now, let me share with you a few examples. So engaged accounts, right? Let's look, I just made a screenshot from Albacross just to give you an idea, right? So 27 companies that fit our ideal customer profile, because there are a lot of filters that were already applied, right? And if you can see it, these companies are from our target markets. And these companies spend 3 hours, 2 hours, 1 hour on our website. There were multiple visits, and all of these companies checked work with us page, basically our consultant page. Is it fair enough to call these accounts engaged? So there is kind of already interest in what we do. We didn't book call with them, right? Or they didn't book call with us, but they are consuming the content and they are looking at how we can help. Is it fair enough to call these accounts engaged, right? High intent. What do you think? And I'm not seeing the replies, so Staffel, let me know.
No replies yet.
And this is another example, right? So if you can look at this company, right? So they spent a lot of time on our web, and then we can see that there were like 3 recent visits, right? 1 hour and a half, 6 form submissions, 5 link clicks, 4 anchor clicks. So there is a lot of engagement, and this company is consuming the content, right? Is it fair enough to call it an engaged account? So that was my point. And I think I would give you a word because you were in charge of creating this in Notion. I think this is really good. The next point is describing how to prioritize these accounts, right, and how to score them.
Yes. Okay, so this is a screenshot from the system. Yeah. So one of the things. So the way that we like to think about it is that we always look first at we're trying to capture some sort of a signal. So which I call a trigger to add somebody to the account list, right? So So a trigger could be, I mean, there has to be some sort of kind of a source, right? So somebody could have engaged with us on LinkedIn. Somebody could have maybe downloaded an ebook, like what Andre showed. We identify somebody on a website with Albacross. We meet somebody at an event. It doesn't matter. All of these are sources for accounts, and then we start putting our accounts through a system, right? So, and the system is basically, okay, first let's see if this account is if this account is qualified. Do they fit all of our qualification criteria? Yes or no? And then we start to map out our engagement criteria, right? So for our engagement and intent criteria. So in this example, we see that they have for our client, we saw that they had a growth in their HR and education functions, which is related to the product of our clients. So that means for us, the signals that they are that they have some sort of an intent, right? Or maybe they are talking about something on LinkedIn. We start to bring all of these intent triggers together, intent and engagement triggers together, and we assign points to everything that we see, right? And so it's very important that we not just have a score, but that we actually have a list of things that we take into account, so that when later on we are doing outreach, um, so that we have something to use for our outreach, right? We can mention, well, in this case, we could mention maybe that we see that they grew quite fast in their sales department, and ask them if they need any help with onboarding, for example, depending on our product.
And I would share just a quick example. So, for example, in this case, look, because the goal of progressive profiling, I would open the screenshot, right? The goal of progressive profiling is basically understanding where this company is in their buying process, right? So in our case, we have free email courses. And obviously, again, as I'm saying, it's not that hard to book a call with us, right? And if people are subscribing to free email courses, even not to paid, let's say, on-demand courses about ABM or demand generation or GTM strategy, it means that they're collecting the basic information about the topic, right? And look how different this example from what you see in the broken playbook, right? In the broken playbook, if somebody signs up for a free email course, right, the next step, sending this to sales, and sales would call and pitch, let's have a demo, right? And we do completely different and at Fullfunnel with our clients, right? I simply reach out to these people saying, hey, so that you signed up for these courses about B2B marketing strategy, ABM, any specific questions you have, would love to connect and help if I can. And a lot of people reply back, right, and saying, hey, so we do this and that, we need this help. And this is fantastic, because from that point, we open the conversation. And again, I totally understand a lot of companies think in that way, hey, but you are not pitching them, you're not booking calls. Yes, because I totally understand that they're in the early beginning of the buying process. But at the same time, I know very well the buying process of our target accounts, right? If I can help them right now here, right, maybe in 7, 8, 9 months, they come back to us with the project where we'll start working together, and this happens all the time. And that's the difference, right? Understanding that if you build the relationship right now and would be able to help and would be able to nurture and stay in touch with these target accounts, this is actually the way how you can convert MQLs to sales opportunities in future, right? Not the automated email cadence and pitching. And I know, Staffy, you prepared this example, so just passing back microphone to you.
Yeah, so this is a fun one, right? Because I made this one quite a while ago, and it's actually nice to look back at it because it's still super relevant. So this is kind of like a first upgrade to the normal way of doing MQL. So it's quite complex, but basically we have demand generation on the left, basically ABM for warm up and activation in the middle, and then sales on the right side. And the way that we can look at it is that we have all of our traffic sources and sources of engagement data on the left side, right? So people can go to the website via Google Ads, or they can download a lead magnet via LinkedIn ads, or they can find us with SEO. It doesn't really matter. and we will use that to identify new accounts. And then as they do more and more relevant things, for example, they can view high intent content, we can start to score them and start to see, okay, these are highly engaged accounts. We keep adding up all the data that we can find about them. And ultimately we say, okay, this account is good enough for us to proactively start to target them with ABM. And then we say, okay, this account is accepted to the ABM list, and start, doing our daily LinkedIn routine, invite them on some of our warmer plays, like a market research, for example. And so basically what it is instead of just taking somebody that downloaded an ebook and automatically adding them to a sales sequence and just trying to convert them immediately, instead of doing that, we're just looking, okay, we have all these people that are somehow in our sphere, we're tracking them, but now we wait for them to hit a certain level of engagement, and then we take them and we look account per account, what is the best possible thing we can do with them, right? We can invite them on a podcast, we can invite them to a dinner, it doesn't really matter. And we enrich these lists of people that come in from the website and that we IP identify, but we can also add just accounts that we find through desk research on Sales Navigator. We can look at people that made public statements that are relevant to us. And all of this slowly comes together into a list of engaged accounts, which goes into our main ABM list. And then from there on out, we try to warm them up first and put them through activation. So it's kind of like a merger between the traditional MQL model, but then have a little bit more of an elegant approach to warming them up. Yeah, guys, let me know if that made sense, because I felt I was ranting a little bit there.
No, I think it was perfect example, but I'm just curious, guys, based on what we have shared with you, does it make sense to you? And did it change somehow the way you are looking at MQLs? Share with us simple feedback in the chat, or type plus or whatever. Yeah, the image, absolutely. You can ping me on LinkedIn, and me or Stafford, we can send it to you, no problem at all. Yeah, and also feel free to ask questions. You can ask video questions as well. You can join the conversation. So we are happy to cover all of your questions. I know you have collected a few, right, stuff about, that was quite interesting one. What do you tell your stakeholders that still want to use MQLs?
Yeah, it's a good question, eh?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we can cover this one, and the way how I'm looking at having this conversation with the stakeholders, right? So first of all, usually stakeholders don't request MQLs from marketing. They just tell, okay, generate me more leads, right? And I don't know, guys, if you follow me on LinkedIn, I exactly shared it. I shared the story today exactly about this, the situation that I have witnessed once. So we have already discussed, right, the issue with MQLs, and that the leads are the consequence, the outcomes of right marketing programs. Now, if they request you to generate more leads, what makes perfect sense, right? So first of all, there should be change management in the organization. So you need to change the mindset and explain how leads are actually becoming the leads, right? So the way how we can change the situation one by one, first is taking the analysis, the way how I just shared it with you, right? Taking a sober look at these things. Next one is having a frank conversation between stakeholder, sales, and marketing about the current challenges. And that it shouldn't be a criticism. It should be a frank conversation, right? Because the only way to solve the challenges is accepting that there are the challenges, that there are the problems, right? So sales should be talking about, so for example, we are losing the deals because, the prospects don't understand the value of our product, right? It's vague or whatever. We are calling the accounts that are not selling sales ready and they don't want talking to us, right? Or like our price is too high, or we're losing on the features, or we're losing on the brand level to specific competitors, right? So there might be a lot of issues, right? So that's the first step. Because MQLs are not converting, we have already discussed this, right? There are a lot of multiple reasons why it doesn't happen, and MQLs, it's not buying intent, and there are no shortcuts to grow the B2B company. So the next step is sitting together and discussing the buying process of all the people who are in that meeting room. How you guys buy, right? When was the last time you received a cold call and you were, wow, so I was waiting for your
I'm
cold
so happy
call,
you're talking to me.
Yeah, I'm so happy receiving this cold call. Yeah, should I just pronounce number by number the number of my credit card, right? So you can immediately add it to your Stripe or whatever, right, to charge me. When was the last time you received a cold email and you were super excited? Wow, this is like the fantastic cold email, man, I'm going to buy it immediately, right? Just send me an invoice. So obviously people don't buy that way, right? And why we should assume that our buyers are different, right? Makes no sense to everybody. Then we look at the root problems and that we have discussed, right, that we have defined. And then we should do the prioritization. What is the most important thing that we need to solve right now, right? Let's call it the lowest hanging fruit. What is the easiest thing to solve that can generate any positive outcome, right? So let's prioritize this one. Next, what are the possible ways to solve it, right? So this is the way how we're going from the problem to the solution, right? And obviously, the ROM wasn't built in one day, and but that's the only way to grow the company, right? So we are going from the silos to joint playbooks to solve specific issues, right? That's the most important part. But I believe that without sober analysis, right, without sober look at numbers and frank conversations between three teams, executives, sales, and marketing, it won't be possible to solve, to fix the broken playbook. And there are a lot of questions, so let's cover them one by one.
Yeah, we got some good questions now. So the first one from Alp, who's from Ghent, I remember, or he's in Ghent. Do you have different stages in your MQLs? For example, I joined this session, then your summit, and engaged with Vlad regularly on LinkedIn. Do you qualify me higher with a higher score than someone who only sat through one session?
So exactly, like I share it with you, we might, and let us know, guys, if you want me and Stafford to host a session on account scoring. If you are interested, we can just schedule another episode of Fullfunnel Live and explain to you the way how we look at account scoring. Just type plus if you are interested in that topic, and we'll schedule it very soon. So just type plus in the chat. But to give you an idea, right, when we do the account scoring, there are several pillars. The first, several pillars of scoring. The first one is the tier, to what tier you belong. So the higher is the tier, let's say if you belong to tier 1, then obviously you'll get a higher score on prioritization, right? Next one is the level of engagement. Obviously, the more engaged you are, the higher score you'll get, right? Next is our account research and based on all publicly available information and information that we can get from common connections or insiders, right? Is there an obvious need in our product, right? So if we can clearly see that there is a need in our product, you'll get a higher score. And then we also look at different triggers. So for example, maybe we have a common connection that joined your company, right? So this person can make an intro or share the insider information? Are there any specific triggers that happened in your company that might tell that you have a need? So, for example, you raised the money or you started selling to enterprise, you are hiring VP of enterprise marketing or sales, just to give you some ideas out of head, right? So these are the cohesive pillars that we look at. We don't just prioritize one, right? So if you attended more sessions, then you'll get higher score than others, right? So we look cohesively at account engagement, and based on this, assign scores and define what account should be prioritized. That was a good question. I just, go ahead.
I think what's also relevant, just to broaden the discussion, is that so the main part at the beginning is to identify engaged accounts, right? And we have to compare to our baseline. If all of our accounts are just a little bit engaged, then we will have to do with whatever level of engagement that we have and use that to move forward. If we have quite a big range of engagement, then we can maybe prioritize looking only at the top 50 accounts and then finding the ones that have the best fit of those 50 accounts. But once you're made it to the account list, the prioritization happens based on the tiers, so that's based on the revenue potential. But then we start thinking in terms of ABM stages. So the first stage then is to do the warm up, right? So we want to make it so that the account knows, likes and trusts us, so that there is some kind of a relationship. Oftentimes there will be some kind of an interview or whatever, some kind of a collaboration. And then during that process, we will actually identify a specific need that can then be used to move to the next stage of ABM, which is the activation stage, which is basically turning a warmed up account into a sales opportunity. So for me, as soon as you made it to the account list, I'm thinking mostly in terms of stages. First, I want to warm them up, and when they're warmed up and there is an opportunity, then I want to move them through to activation.
Perfect. There is one more question from Manfred. Would you still work with drip sequences? We have drip sequences, but not sales. So we never ever, and whenever we start working with a new client, we have the audit stage. And whenever we see that client sends these automated pitches, we immediately recommend to stop this. What we do instead is that we create a dedicated newsletter, and it's this is not the newsletter which we, let's say, obligatory sign up, the people automatically sign up. So they have let's say they have two choices. We send several emails where we suggest, okay, if you want, you can sign up and you'll get this, and that content. Or if you don't want, you'll get whatever asset you're interested in, let's say this free email course, and that's it. And this is what we call the shadow newsletter. So basically, if account says, tells us that I'm interested in account-based marketing, then every Tuesday, they will be receiving the best educational content on account-based marketing, which obviously contains links to some relevant podcast episodes, let's say like this one, right? Or some relevant blog articles. And obviously, we demonstrate our expertise, and there is a small call to action that if they have an interest in account-based marketing, they can book a call with us, or they can purchase on-demand course. But this is the native integration, right, of it. Let's say 99% of that content is purely educational, helping these people. So in that case, yes. What else we have here? Another question from Alp. When you qualify high-low intent pages, what are your low intent pages? Your high intent pages are probably pages where you collect information, right? So for me, in our case, there is only one high intent page. It's work with us. So for our clients, it's slightly different. Let's say if it's a SaaS company, then it could be pricing, book a demo, and vertical use cases or vertical solutions. These are the high intent pages that we define together. And all the rest is low intent pages. So as simple as that. Would you add anything, Staffan?
I know. I mean, it depends on I would say that some case studies can also be high intent, and if you would have a pricing page, I think that's also a high intent page in many cases. And I think also the other thing is that we also look at how much time they spend on the website. So if they spend like 30 minutes on a website, that's a pretty good sign too. Maybe it's more engagement than intent, but it's relevant to look at how long people are spending on the website and how many times they return, etc.
Yeah, also we have bottom of the funnel content hubs. So the content hubs that contain, that's where we have added all of our case studies, explain the process of working with us, right? Some, let's say, bottom of the funnel content. And if people check this content hubs and engage with that content, that's also high intent for us. And if they spend decent time in that content hub, so that's another one. Any other questions we have? Question from Alan. Do you identify engaged accounts manually? Asking because the automated ones, at least in my case, can always have some flaws. I think, Staffan, you can describe your experience of setting up this in HubSpot just briefly.
Yeah. So what I did in HubSpot, I think that was also in this image. I'm not sure, but what I did was I would just have captured contacts or captured accounts, and then I would have engaged accounts, and then I would have accepted accounts. So going from identified to engaged is automatic, but then going from engaged to accepted is a manual step. So that's how I think most people should do it, especially, and ultimately you want to have pretty small account list, like let's say maybe like 12 tier ones max, or maybe more like 8, and then maybe like max 80 tier 2, and I think usually less. So you want to have a pretty tight account list, especially if you're doing an ABM motion. So it is worthwhile not only to accept them manually, but also to review the list once per week or once per 2 weeks, and also get rid of accounts where you have a good reason to believe that they're not relevant anymore. So maintaining the list is actually quite a manual process, but that's also because maybe you can spend quite a lot of time on an account before you have really proof that they're gonna close or gonna be relevant in the future. So you want to only be working on accounts where you're really confident that you're gonna make some progress.
And there was as well a great question, which is related to what Mahi asked, like how do you tie the value of marketing to sales if the company started marketing from scratch and has had a boiler room strategy till now? Actually, there are two unknown things, right? If company decided to start marketing from scratch because the mindset was changed and they understand that boiler room approach doesn't work anymore, right? Or they think that marketing can become an extension of the boiler room strategy, right? So in this case, there are two unknowns, right? And if the mindset was changed and they understand that marketing has a different role, right, then the way how you should look at that would be three core metrics, right? First of all is influence. Like one is if you want just purely to show the impact. I don't like the distinction between marketing and sales because these are the functions that exist to generate revenue. But if you want, right, and if you just want to justify marketing sourced revenue, you can start tracking it, right? Marketing sourced revenue is the revenue that's coming from marketing programs. Let's say you attended this podcast, then you book call with us and you tell, yes, I listened to this podcast episode between Andre and hosted by Andre and Staffan, right? And this is how I'm coming, to you. So this is marketing sourced pipeline, purely attributed, no sales touches, right? The second one is influence on the revenue metrics, because again, not all marketing activities would be directly attributed to revenue, right? Just to give you a specific example, you're listening to this episode, maybe later you'll engage with us on LinkedIn, maybe you'll consume our newsletter, and after some period of time, you'll come and you book a call, right? And that could come purely from the branded search on Google. Let's say you search for Fullfunnel, you come to our website, and then you book book a call. So this is really important to understand, because that's why I suggest to track engaged accounts, right? And that was the question, why we should measure it. Because if I know that, let's say, this episode, for this episode, we had, let's say, 100 people signed up. And from this 100 people, we had 30% tier 1 accounts, let's say 20% tier 2, 30% tier 3, and 20%, let's say, people that don't fit our ideal customer profile, right? For me, that's already a good metric, because this is very top of the funnel. But I can understand, if I have an established reporting model, I can make a forecast based on my historical growth that some of you in future, right, according to our sales cycle length, would become a sales opportunity. So that's the point, right? And we need to look as well cohesively at other revenue metrics. Aside from new sales opportunities, we need to look at, do we have a higher win rate, right? If we have a higher win rate, that's already a success. Because if you close more deals, you generate more revenue. As simple as that, right? Without generating new logos. Next, your average contract value. If you generate accounts, right, that purchase more licenses or higher product tier, right, whatever, so they generate more revenue for you, ultimately you generate more revenue without generating new customers, right? That's another important metric. And lastly, how long was your sales cycle? If marketing helps sales to decrease sales cycle, it means that you generate revenue faster, right? And that's also important. So these are the metrics that you need to look at cohesively. And there was question from Kari about what metrics should you focus on instead of number of MQLs generated, and how do you get executive leadership and investors on board with this new way of measuring. So to connect the dots, right, I just explained the metrics. And to connect the dots, you need, when you have this conversation with sales and executives about existing problems, right, and when you present the analysis, this is exactly the point when you need to present the new way of measuring and ask them if that makes sense to everybody, right? So that's the most essential. That's the most essential thing. Could there be a podcast on metrics specifically? We already have hosted 2 episodes with Staffo. So one was about measuring ABM and demand generation, and one was about B2B marketing report. So if you'll go to fullfunnel.io/podcast, you can just literally look at the recent episodes, and you can find it, or you can find it on Spotify. Just these were 2 of the recent episodes before the summer break. And the question from Alp, we have 1 minute left, so I will try to quickly cover this. I know you probably talked about this in another session, Andre, but we struggle with long sales cycles, too long sometimes. What are some activities marketing can help sales with to shorten it? I'm not talking about micromanaging salespeople, but rather creating case studies for SQL accounts and specific content. So again, that leads us to cohesive playbook, right? First of all, that I mean, if the nature of your business is a long sales cycle, it's really, really hard to change it drastically. But what is possible to do, right? I would just give a broad recommendation. So first of all, understand through what channels and through what programs you can influence the buying process. Let's say your buyers belong to a specific association or specific community, and you can host, let's say, co-marketing activities with that community to regularly meet and nurture these accounts, right? What are the channels through that they use to consume a specific content, and what content they're interested in, right? This one. Next one is, what are the channels that can enable you, I mean, marketing and sales team, to have one-on-one conversations with these people. So I would look cohesively at these activities and Also, I would prioritize all accounts. If you remember, you asked me about accounts, Corin. I would prioritize all accounts by how likely they are going to purchase our product, right? Is there a if there a clear need of our product? If there is a need, then I would definitely prioritize these accounts, and they should be added, let's say, to, let's call it activation play between marketing and sales, right? Those accounts that don't have a clear need, unfortunately, you can't drastically change it. I mean, there is no magic wand, right? But you can, if you want to track it, you can create a separate pipeline in HubSpot, let's say, or in Notion, right? With all of these engaged accounts. And basically, you continue engaging with them, so they should still be in your demand generation program. That's really essential because, I mean, that's the only way how you'll be able to generate demand. Sorry, probably if I didn't provide a silver bullet to solve that issue. But if company, the answer is simple. If company doesn't have a clear need in your product, and if they even are not aware of the problem that your product solves, I mean, there is only, that could be changed only through regular long education. So that's it. I think we have covered all the questions. Just share with us your favorite emoji in the chat. How did you like it? Was it helpful? Was it insightful? Or put pluses, whatever. Curious to hear your feedback, guys.
I gotta go. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
And yeah, gave some stuff to think about. Thank you. And yeah, so in 1 week, we're coming back with new episode. So stay tuned. And yeah, the recording will be available here as well on YouTube, on Spotify. Thanks, Alp. Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Mahi. Thanks a lot, Alan, and all the rest of the guys who attended the session and posted great questions. Appreciate it. And see you in 1 week. Cheers. Take care.